Hi, Keir here. It's no secret that Mike and I love the films of Billy Wilder. It's also no secret we love watching films in theaters, especially grand old movie palaces. On Saturday, February 28th, we get to do both by hosting a screening of Sunset Boulevard in Milwaukee, Wisconsin's Oriental Theater. We'll introduce the film, watch it from the seats, and then stick around afterward to talk about what makes it the best movie ever made about Hollywood. We'll also share our favorite facts and stories about the film. We hope you can join us on February 28th at the Oriental Theater to watch Sunset Boulevard. If you can't make it, but know someone who would be interested, please let them know. Tickets are on sale now. Just visit Milwaukee Film at mkefilm.org. And if you don't know about the amazing folks at Milwaukee Film already, you're in for a treat. Between their Oriental and Downer theaters, they've created a film fan's paradise on the shore of Lake Michigan. Mike and I hope to see you there.
It's the summer of 1948, and things aren't going well for Billy Wilder. Despite his run of successful movies, starting with Double Indemnity and continuing on to The Lost Weekend, for which he won an Oscar for Best Director and Best Screenplay, through The Emperor Waltz and to his latest film, A Foreign Affair, a dark cloud is hanging over Wilder.
It started in June of that year when Elizabeth Brackett, the wife of Wilder's longtime writing partner, Charles Brackett, died of alcoholism. She'd been Brackett's rock, the person he relied on as, in his own words, his refuge from the foolishness of this foolish town. And much of the foolishness Brackett suffered, as we've chronicled throughout this season, came from his relationship with Billy Wilder. So the already strained relationship between the two men grew even more fraught.
A month later, according to David M. Lubin's book, Ready for My Close-Up, which chronicles the making of Sunset Boulevard, Wilder had a meeting with Barney Balaban, the head of Paramount. Balaban wasn't in a good state. Ticket sales were down, and the studio system, due to more films being made independently, was starting to falter. And looming fear of television, essentially a movie theater in every American home, had just started to take root. Wilder's meeting with Balaban had, according to Brackett, succeeded in depressing Billy pretty severely.
Old Hollywood was, in a sense, dying. Just a few months before Elizabeth Brackett's passing, Wilder had an incident with another alcoholic. He was dining with Samuel Goldwyn at Romanoff's, a famous Beverly Hills restaurant with a star-studded clientele, when they were accosted by an old man, drunk out of his mind, who pointed a finger at Goldwyn and said, "Here you are, you son of a bitch. I ought to be the one making pictures." The drunken man was D.W. Griffith, who died later that same year. The encounter left Wilder shaken.
So what do you do in such gloomy, ominous times? If you're Billy Wilder, you do what you always do. You make a movie. But not Sunset Boulevard, not yet. Wilder and Brackett would first attempt to make other movies they'd failed to get off the ground, which only compounded their growing frustrations. I'm Michael Moreci, and with me as always is Keir Graff. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Sunset Boulevard, how it was made, its legacy, and how it marked a turning point in Billy Wilder's career. Before we go any further, I want to talk a little bit about our Patreon. We are making a big push this year to get more people to join our Patreon. It's really important to us, and here's why. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but Keir and I are working writers, and the time we take to do this podcast is time that we're taking away from doing our career, our day job, and it is the choice we make. We love making this podcast, and we love that so many of you have responded so positively to it. But as they say, time is money. And also, money is money. Because in addition to taking the time away from our jobs, we're also paying our producer Kevin, we're paying for our theme music, we're paying for merch, we're paying for all sorts of things, just the general cost of making a podcast. And again, we're happy to do it. We love doing it. But we would be gratefully appreciative, and it would help us a ton if you joined our Patreon. And listen, we are not asking you, we're not asking anyone for simply a handout. Our Patreon, in my opinion, is pretty great. You get all of our episodes ad-free, all of our archives, and we record specific episodes that exist only on Patreon and nowhere else. We've done book clubs. We run polls. There are so many reasons to join our Patreon, in addition to just supporting us, that are worthwhile for you. So please visit us at patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast. Even if you can join just for free, having the visibility of more members helps increase Patreon, pushing us forward and getting us more seen and more known. And that is a great help for us. So just sign up, just join for free, or join at any level that you are comfortable joining. It's patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast.
We were just extremely lucky. This was a picture where everything sort of kind of fell into my lap. I needed the Paramount studio where we were shooting at Paramount. We got the permission. I needed the mill to play the mill, and he played it. I needed somebody to play the Stroheim part, who at one time had been a director and had made a picture with Gloria Swanson. And indeed, we found that old picture that he had directed with her, Queen Kelly. We needed old faces, and we got Mr. Warner, who played Jesus, and we got Buster Keaton. You know, everything sort of kind of fell into our lap. Everything was just right. Stroheim, you know, I had that experience with Stroheim. You know, I'd never met him before in my life, and I clicked my heels, knowing my, and I said, "My name is Wilder," and he says, "How are you?" And in order to kind of make him feel good, I said, "Who would have ever thought that little Wilder is going to direct big Stroheim?" And he just sort of barked to me a little bit. Then I said, "You know, your problem always was, Eric, was you were always 10 years ahead of your time." And he looks at me and he says, 20. That was it.
Keir, Wilder and Brackett attempted to get 2 different movies made after A Foreign Affair, and neither panned out. In fact, both completely died and were never resuscitated. And to be honest, you can kind of see why.
You can. The first was a thriller that was going to star James Mason and take place in Palestine against the backdrop of the Arab-Israeli War. Wilder had been wanting to make it for some time, and it does sound interesting, but it doesn't seem like something that would have lured crowds of Americans to movie theaters. The second attempted film was a proposed adaptation of Evelyn Waugh's novel, The Loved One. The book, which satirizes both the movie industry and, oddly, the pet cemetery business, may have planted the seeds for Sunset Boulevard, and it also feels like a challenging adaptation. Brackett called Waugh's novel a strange, cruel book, although when doesn't he find novels strange and cruel? So he and Wilder passed on that one as well.
Let's go back to D.W. Griffith's passing, which was not only a monumental moment in Hollywood's history, but also its future. Griffith was, one could argue, cinema's first auteur. Or, at the very least, he was one of cinema's earliest pioneers. Most people likely know him for his masterpiece, 1915's The Birth of a Nation, but Griffith was much more than just that now controversial film. He invented the close-up, and in his 1916 film Intolerance, he revolutionized editing techniques with his use of montage and dissolves. Alongside Cecil B. DeMille and Erich von Stroheim, he was one of the biggest directors in the world. But Hollywood is a cruel place, and in just 15 years removed from the apex of his medium, Griffith was a washed-up drunk. The talkies effectively killed his career, and he spent the next 2 decades roaming Hollywood, haunting the land where he was once king.
Brackett, who was then the president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, delivered Griffith's eulogy. It was his second eulogy in as many months. Brackett saw him as a victim of Hollywood and wondered if he might be next. In his diary, Brackett noted the LA Times criticism of him for eulogizing Griffith when he was dead, but not hiring him while he was alive, and, quote, hinting that I might suffer the same fate, which seems not unlikely, though it would all be much less gaudy.
Brackett was also acutely aware of Griffith's core malady. Fame had once given, and now it had taken away. Griffith was given an honorary Academy Award years before he passed, but Brackett understood that it was hardly a balm for what truly ailed Griffith. He didn't want near posthumous recognition. He wanted to make more movies. He wanted budgets and stars and studio backing. There was no solution for Griffith, Brackett wrote, but a kind of frenzied beating on the barred doors.
On the very same day Brackett wrote in his journal about being scolded by the LA Times, he also wrote this: Billy and I spent the morning in discussion of the Hollywood story. It's all centered around a swimming pool owned by an old Silent Days star.
You can feel the earth practically shaking beneath Wilder's and Brackett's feet. The darkness of Brackett's personal life, Wilder's stress over the future of Hollywood, their shared anxiety over fading legacy like Griffith, post-war cynicism, and we've hardly gotten to Wilder's and Brackett's relationship, which is toxic at this point.
Pieces are all there. This is, after all, a movie that starts with a writer who can't catch a break, floating dead in a swimming pool, a pool belonging to a forgotten silent star. There's no room for the past, no hope for the future. And speaking of said silent film star, let's bring her into the picture. Though it's not Gloria Swanson. At least, not yet.
Keir, it's no secret that both you and I champion physical media.
We do, Mike. We love having movies on our shelves, we love the tactile experience, and we love getting lost in bonus features that you'll never find in a streaming library.
We have many favorite Blu-ray and 4K distributors, and chief among them is Vinegar Syndrome, who not only distribute cinematic gems, but they lovingly restore them as well.
Vinegar Syndrome boasts a wonderfully eclectic blend of exploitation essentials like Tammy and the T-Rex and Flesh for Frankenstein,
as well as classics like Michael Mann's The Keep, Elaine May's A New Leaf, and one of my personal favorites, Dirty Work, starring the great Norm Macdonald.
And let's not forget one of my personal favorites, John Dahl's Red Rock West.
They even carry Revealer, a movie I co-wrote with Tim Seeley. Like all of Vinegar Syndrome's releases, it's packed with extras. You can feel the care they put into each and every title in their catalog.
If you love movies, and if you love physical media, you're going to want to check out Vinegar Syndrome's entire library. Visit them at vinegarsyndrome.com. That's vinegarsyndrome.com.
There's a great story in Ed Sykoff's book On Sunset Boulevard where Wilder and Walter Reich, who was at the time pitching projects with Wilder, which marks yet another writer basically auditioning to be Brackett's replacement right under his nose. Awkward. Wilder invited both Reich and silent film legend Greta Garbo to his house for a drink. Now, Wilder knew Garbo. He wrote the screenplay for Ninotchka, her 1939 vehicle directed by Ernst Lubitsch. We devoted an entire episode to it, and it's available exclusively to our Patreon subscribers. Nonetheless, Garbo is a big deal. She's a huge star, one of the biggest that ever lived. So when Wilder called up to his wife, Audrey, and told her they had a guest, and she asked who, and he said, Greta Garbo, she responded by saying, "Oh, fuck off."
There goes our PG rating. Now, Wilder never officially pitched Garbo Sunset Boulevard, but he did learn something valuable from their meeting, or after their meeting. While Reich was driving her home, Garbo told him she was only interested in playing one role, that of a woman playing a male clown. According to Sykoff, when Reich told Wilder, Wilder said all Garbo wanted was, quote, to hide behind the grease paint. She could play the clown, so no one would be able to see her face, end quote. Which sounds very Norma Desmond-esque.
Yeah, that observation lands directly in the movie. In it, in Sunset Boulevard, there's a scene where Norma's driving to Paramount to meet DeMille, and Joe Gillis comments in his narration that she's wearing 2 pounds of makeup. By the way, Keir, in these early stages, do you know what Brackett's and Wilder's code name for Boulevard was? What was titled before it had a title?
All About Eve?
No, close. They called it Can of Beans, which is actually, I found out later, a reference to Wilder's early years in Hollywood, where he was so poor, he was eating, cans of beans. So
very autobiographical.
So now at this point, the movie's spine and the silent film star driving the narrative is taking shape, sort of. Wilder didn't have a script. He didn't even have a treatment. Just this sense that he had to tell a story about Hollywood, about the industry that lures people in with big dreams, that even delivers those dreams sometimes, and how, when the dream is over, you oftentimes wake up to a living nightmare. And it needed to be authentic, which meant getting an authentic actor to play the lead, someone who knew the world of silent film, who lived it, endured it, and was now many years removed for better or worse. Wilder wanted Mae West. Brackett did not.
This still blows my mind. And this time Brackett was right. He saw A Can of Beans as being a serious picture that exposed the price of fame. Wilder saw it as a satirical comedy. According to his diaries, Brackett's diaries, he already had Gloria Swanson in mind, but Wilder's vision was still misaligned with Brackett's. Fortunately for film history, West turned the project down anyway, which ended up being to Wilder's immediate relief and her lasting regret. After he actually met with her, Wilder realized or predicted that she would play the role too broadly, and West, later in life, called passing on the role the worst mistake she'd ever made. So Wilder forged ahead. He tried Pola Negri, she turned him down. He tried Mary Pickford, who accepted the part, but on the condition that the lead was hers and hers alone. She wouldn't share the spotlight with whoever played Joe Gillis. Realizing Pickford was a little too Norma Desmond, Wilder turned her down. Finally, they went to Gloria Swanson, who also didn't want the role.
We'll talk more about Swanson in a moment, but there's another story unfolding here. While Wilder and Brackett are finding it impossible to find the right person to play their has-been silent film star, they're also finding something else to be impossible: working together. Now, we know Wilder and Brackett fought. At this point in their partnership, they'd fought for so long and so regularly that not screaming at each other had to feel like an anomaly. But there's a saying about tumultuous relationships: you don't stop fighting because you've reconciled. You stop fighting because you no longer care. And that seems to be the case with Wilder and Brackett. From what we can tell, Wilder and Brackett didn't fight like they used to. In fact, they really didn't spend much time together at all, at least not like they once did.
Wilder had recently gotten married, and Brackett was traveling a lot. He had a daughter in Washington, D.C., he still had connections in New York, and he was also courting, after a fashion, Swanson. According to his diaries, he and Wilder just weren't spending all that much time together. Though that didn't stop Wilder from straight up insulting Brackett over his latest movie, Miss Tatlock's Millions, which starred a Foreign Affairs John Lund and was co-written by Richard L. Breen, the hotshot writer Wilder brought onto Affair, hoping he could be Brackett's replacement. On September 1st, Brackett recorded the response Wilder had had to the movie at the previous night's screening. Quote, "It's just a bad picture. It's the worst picture you've ever had your name on, ever. That showing was a flop. I heard what people really thought about it. They'd go to you and tell you how good it was, and then tell me how they hated it." End quote. We love Wilder. He's funny, he's endlessly entertaining, and he made some of the best movies of all time. There's no question that he could be an asshole.
Yeah, especially when it came to Brackett, something I think we both find very puzzling. We've discussed how Brackett and Wilder were oil and vinegar. One conservative, one progressive, one quiet, one who couldn't shut up, one prudish, one liberated. The opposites can go on, but at the end of the day, Brackett was a hell of a writer. Wilder tried replacing him many times and only succeeded up to this point just once. And it took Raymond Chandler, arguably the greatest crime writer in the world, to fill Brackett's shoes. And funny enough, just like Brackett, Chandler didn't get along with Wilder either.
As we've said before, what's the common denominator?
You don't have to look hard. So, despite Brackett's fine abilities as a writer, Wilder had clearly had enough. So, for Can of Beans, he brought in another writer, D.M. Marshman Jr., or Mac, as Brackett calls him in his diaries.
Unlike other flirtations Wilder had had with Brackett replacements, Marshman stuck. In fact, according to Psychov, Marshman was the one who broke Sunset Boulevard. Wilder and Brackett were still at an impasse with their nascent idea, and it was Marshman who unlocked the story when he pitched them the idea of having the silent film star getting involved with a younger man. Then Wilder took it further by proposing that the aging star should kill this young man. From there, Sunset Boulevard began to truly take shape.
As usual, Brackett struggled to wrap his head around Wilder's cynicism, and this was a major and evergreen problem for them. Brackett wasn't just conservative, he was gentle. Stories with dark hearts like Double Indemnity just didn't appeal to him, so you can imagine the struggles he had with Sunset Boulevard. On September 9th, he wrote how their nation's script has everything a picture concerning Hollywood shouldn't be: ugly, perverted, banal. But for Wilder, that's all that this movie ought to be. And this profound difference in taste, in their existential outlooks on life, is probably what drove them apart more than any of their fighting ever could.
We can really see Brackett taking a back seat here because we know the movie Sunset Boulevard ultimately became. Going back to Psychov once again, he claims, according to Paramount's accounting figures, that Sunset's screenplay was written almost exclusively by Wilder and Marshman. Brackett clearly played an indispensable role in developing the story, and he surely wrote at least some of it. And he served as the film's producer. But the days of Brackett and Wilder being cooped up in their office on the Paramount lot, writing, arguing, and throwing phone books at each other, those days seem to be in the past. On December 9th, while still in development on Sunset, Brackett approached Wilder about a new deal to extend their partnership. Brackett wrote that he said, quote, "Billy, one thing has shocked me and hurt me immeasurably, that after 15 years of close and dear partnership, you never once said, 'What will be best for us?' Only, 'What will be best for me?'" And according to Brackett, it struck Wilder like a bolt from the blue. He had no idea. And that, in so many ways, speaks not only to the heart of their relationship, but also the reason for its demise.
It's undeniable that his screenplays with Brackett are the better screenplays. But the Billy Wilder as a writer-director that everyone associates with Billy Wilder, it's the I.A. Diamond movies.
Absolutely.
Those are the 60s movies. Those are the late 50s, 60s movies that create the Billy Wilder that we know today.
Here, let's get back to casting. Now, we did cover this bit of history before last year. Listeners, if you recall, we recorded an episode for Sunset Boulevard's 75th anniversary, and we chronicled the story of how Gloria Swanson eventually agreed to star in this picture. We'll recap it here, but if you want more detail, be sure to check out that episode.
Like most silent stars, Swanson didn't want to play Norma Desmond because the role came too close to reality. At this point, she hadn't appeared on screen, the big screen, in nearly 10 years. She was aging and insecure. Contemporary Hollywood has got nothing on old Hollywood when it comes to the treatment of aging actresses, and by all accounts, she just wasn't interested in the role. In fact, according to Lubin, she only agreed to meet with Brackett because it gave her an all-expenses-paid trip to California. But Wilder and Brackett were savvy, and a bit desperate, since none of their other candidates had worked out. They put Swanson up in the Beverly Hills Hotel. They offered her a salary of $50,000, a massive raise from the $350 per week she was making on her TV show back east, The Gloria Swanson Hour. They wined her, they dined her, they even screened A Foreign Affair for her, which, of course, featured another former silent star, Marlene Dietrich. Fun and crazy fact, Dietrich was only 2 years younger than Swanson, yet she was still out there playing sexy cabaret singers.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's a testament to boy, what a knockout. We talked about it in Foreign Affair, but what a knockout Dietrich was. Oh my goodness.
Ageless.
Ageless, yeah. Goodness. So with all this, there was a problem. Brackett and Wilder both insisted that Swanson take a screen test. This was unimaginable to her. She was the star of over 50 films. She was, not long ago, one of the highest paid stars in Hollywood. How dare they ask her to take a screen test? Thankfully, her good friend, director George Cukor, talked some sense into her. Quote, "Do the screen test," he said, "or I'll personally shoot you." So, outfitted in a costume specifically designed for her by Edith Head, Swanson did the test. And the line she read, "I am big. It's the pictures that got small." She was ferocious and clearly better than me. And according to Brackett, she had no inhibitions. He was thrilled. Wilder was pleased. They had their Norma Desmond.
The experience of casting the role of Joe Gillis was pretty much the opposite. Throughout the development process, Brackett and Wilder were set on Montgomery Clift, and Clift was set on playing Gillis. In fact, according to Brackett's diaries, they had met with him on a number of occasions, discussing the story with him, which, most of the time, Brackett admitted was bullshit, because there really wasn't a story. Not yet, at least. There was no reason for them to believe Clift was anything but committed, and he was a considerable get. Clift was arguably the up-and-coming actor of this time, having just starred in Howard Hawks' Red River and The Search by Wilder's old friend, Fred Zinnemann. But just a month before filming was set to begin, Clift dropped out, claiming no one would believe he could carry on a romance with an older woman. So much for his commitment to method acting.
Boo.
Wilder was furious. He screamed at Clift's agent, saying, "Bullshit! If he was any kind of an actor, he'd be convincing making love to a woman of any age." And he's not wrong.
No, he's not. But here, that was the official reason Clift's people gave for his departure. According to Wilder, in the series of interviews he did with Cameron Crowe, Clift was having a real affair with an older woman, Libby Holman. He didn't want his first big picture to be so true to life, and he didn't want to draw attention to this affair, so that's why he dropped out.
And to just add one more little layer to this, Erich von Stroheim, in language I'm not going to repeat now, said that he believed Swanson wasn't old enough for the role because he would still do her.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Granted, he's a little older than Clift.
He is a little older than Cliff, but okay, man, we're peeking behind the curtain. Filmographers after dark, man.
This is saucy stuff. We're like a tabloid from 78 years ago.
Just this much behind the times, Keir. Anyway, passing on Sunset was obviously a missed opportunity for Clift, though he'd go on to make The Heiress, A Place in the Sun, and From Here to Eternity, so it's safe to say he did okay. But this left Wilder in a tough spot. He was just weeks away from shooting, and now they were short a lead actor. To replace Clift, man, Wilder went to everyone. He went to Fred McMurray, his old Double Indemnity pal, who said no. He'd play a murderer, but not a gigolo. This is crazy. Of all people, he went to Gene Kelly, who I cannot imagine.
No.
him like dancing around the mansion. No.
That would have been terrible.
Well, he did recently play a nightclub owner who seduces older women in the musical Pal Joey. I had no idea what Pal Joey that was about that. But MGM wouldn't loan him out anyway. Wilder went after Burt Lancaster, who I think would have been awesome. John Garfield. He even tried a young Marlon Brando. Ooh. Yeah, right. Norma, you used to be somebody. You used to be a contender.
Instead of a bum, which is what you are.
Doesn't matter. They all said no. Enter William Holden, the actor who truly had once been a contender, but now he was not.
Sometimes I get my surprises. Sometimes a scene that played beautifully in the typewriter doesn't work on film. The story I keep telling, but it's so true, because somebody would ask me, says, "Tell me, is it very important that a director also knows how to write?" And I always answer, no, but it is very important that he knows how to read.
In an interview with 60 Minutes last year, Nancy Olson, who played Betty Schaefer in Sunset Boulevard and is still alive today, said that William Holden didn't just play Joe Gillis, he was Joe Gillis. Holden knew hard times. In 1939, he starred in Golden Boy, a movie in which he showed great promise as an actor, but promise that went unfulfilled for over a decade as he appeared in one forgettable movie after another. But he was available, and he was a Paramount contract player, so Wilder decided to meet with him. They had drinks, and, according to Sykoff, Wilder realized that Holden's lack of success wasn't his fault. It was the bad movies he'd starred in. Wilder realized Holden was smart, thought he had depth, and recognized that his struggles made him the perfect person to play Joe Gillis. Holden took home a portion of the script, read it, and immediately called Wilder saying, "I like it, I'll do it, let's go." It was the start of what would become one of Wilder's most enduring friendships.
While Holden was outwardly enthusiastic, privately he was afraid. He told his wife that he was scared to take the role. Quote, "I'm not sure I can deliver." But deliver he did. Like Swanson relating to Desmond being a has-been, Holden related to Gillis being a never was. And Wilder, despite all the roadblocks, had the perfect leads for his new picture. Now it was time to fill out the rest of the cast, which featured the return of Erich von Stroheim, who we all know and love from Wilder's 1943 war picture, Five Graves to Cairo. Like Max the Butler, von Stroheim was also a has-been silent film director. He directed Greed, a groundbreaking 1924 film. Now, legend has it that its initial cut was over 8 hours long, so MGM's boy wonder producer Irving Thalberg fired von Stroheim, which is the theme, took the movie out of his hands, and reduced his epic version to just 2.5 hours. Those 5+ hours of footage are now lost to time, even though those who saw it called it the greatest movie ever made. But it was like the 10th movie ever made, so, you know... Whatever.
Smaller sample size.
Yeah.
Speaking of the silent era, it's impossible to discuss this movie without talking about the bridge scene, where Swanson plays with 3 real-life washed-up stars, Anna Q. Nilsson, H.B. Warner, and arguably the greatest silent film actor of them all, Buster Keaton. You know, it's fun now to see these icons of early cinema sitting around a table playing cards, but back then it had to have been kind of sad. These people, performers who built Hollywood and helped make it what it was, were still around, still more than available, and they'd all been forgotten. Today, we see this scene as a fun Easter egg, but we know Wilder. The scene is about so much more than that. It's so much darker. Wilder is rubbing the industry's faces in it, reminding them of the people they not only forgot, but chose to forget in the never-ending pursuit of the next big thing. Who's the next star? What's the next craze? It's a beast that must relentlessly be fed. And once you've given all you can give, what good are you? But that, of course, is the point of the movie.
Yeah, well said, Keir. I mean, there is so much sadness hanging over this film. To von Stroheim's inclusion in the film and the role he plays, to seeing those stars of yesterday, you know, trotted out in suits, they're like zoo animals, like monkeys. And it's no coincidence that Gillis's relationship with Desmond begins with the death of a monkey. It's all very surreal. David Lynch has called Sunset Boulevard one of his favorite movies, which comes as no surprise. And he has said that the movie is like a dream. And I don't know about you, but I really understand what he means. You know, from those sad and strange touches that we just mentioned to Wilder's use of dissolves to go from one scene to the next, strange dissolves, to the dreamy atmosphere of Desmond's haunted mansion, to, you know, Franz Waxman's eerie and sometimes unnervy score. It all feels really ethereal.
It does. It really does. There's also the scene where Gillis and Desmond watch her silent picture in the dark, and she gets up and performs, you know, in the projector beam, you know, lit, is lighting her like a spotlight, and she's ranting madly about making her return. And it's all so strange and so dark that, yeah, it does have the logic of a dream. Interesting side note. So the footage they watch in that scene is from Queen Kelly, directed by von Stroheim, which only adds to the surreality of that moment. And it was his suggestion, in fact, to use that footage. And there's a ton of backstory on this, but basically Queen Kelly was a picture that was bankrolled by Swanson and by her lover, Joe Kennedy, who put up a whole bunch of money to bankroll this film. And she selected Stroheim. She knew he was difficult to work with, but she wanted a big statement picture. She wanted to work with the best. And then Stroheim did what Stroheim does. The picture went over schedule and over budget, and he was adding gratuitous stuff that wasn't in the script. And then she finally had to make the decision to fire him. And that pretty much ended his career as a director. And she and Kennedy tried to cut the film to salvage something out of it, but it was a total bomb. And it more or less ended her career as a star as well. So the symbolism of the use of that brief clip in Sunset Boulevard is so heavy. And what they showed was, at the time, a portion of what was thought to be the only remaining footage of the movie, because, of course, they didn't preserve things back then the way we do now. But that is not the case anymore. Queen Kelly was found and restored, and it actually screened at the Film Forum in New York earlier this month.
That's awesome. And I hope people see it, and I hope even more that they give it good reviews, just like I hope that they give the Filmographers podcast a good review on whatever podcasting platform they are using. give us a rating or review. They are so critical. You've probably heard us say this before. And if you're sick of hearing it, you know how you can get us to stop? Take a guess, Keir.
Maybe like leave a rating or a review or join our Patreon or just show some support for the Filmographers podcast any way you know how.
Yeah, nailed it. It's free. It takes no time at all. And you'd be doing us a great service. And we're being kind of facetious and cheeky, but for real, it would mean a lot to us. Please do so.
And at the very least, tell your movie-loving friends about us. Talk about us on Reddit. Do whatever you can to bolster our word of mouth. We thank you.
Keir, my favorite place to record the Filmographers podcast is in your studio in the Fine Arts Building, which is a place that you know a lot about.
I guess you could say I wrote the book on the subject. It's called Chicago's Fine Arts Building, Music, Magic, and Murder.
Whoa, murder?
Hey, artists have a lot of sharp objects lying around. And yes, while I do explore some of the darker things that have happened in this historic building, I focus more on its fascinating history and famous tenants, past and present.
I think my favorite story was about the Fine Arts Building's connection to Citizen Kane. I also love, and no offense, Keir, all the pretty pictures.
None taken, Mike. It's a beautiful hardcover book loaded with stunning photographs and archival images that looks great on your coffee table, or the coffee table of any arts lover in your family.
Listeners, you can order signed, personalized copies of Chicago's Fine Arts Building, Music, Magic, and Murder from our favorite bookstore, Exile and Bookville, located in the Fine Arts Building at 410 South Michigan Avenue. Or find them online at exileandbookville.com. Just use the notes field to tell them how Keir should inscribe it.
It's also available from the publisher at trope.com and wherever books are sold. Filming for Sunset Boulevard began on March 26, 1949, and it was a pretty smooth production. There were small issues, like with Cecil B. DeMille, the famous silent director who, unlike many of his peers, had actually survived the transition to sound. He was still a working director at the time of the filming of Sunset Boulevard. In fact, when Norma visits him on the set at the Paramount lot, that was the set of Samson and Delilah, an actual film he was actually shooting. He was a little difficult, though, which should probably come as no surprise if you know anything about Cecil B. DeMille. He flubbed some of his lines and required multiple takes, and despite only agreeing to a day's worth of work and getting paid $10,000 for it, there was one line he refused to say. There's a moment where Norma tells him that she hasn't seen him since Lindbergh landed in Paris and they danced on the nightclub tables. That was a line meant for him. But DeMille told Wilder, "I never go to nightclubs and I don't dance. And if I did dance, I'd dance with Mrs. DeMille."
Boring.
Okay, Poindexter. Wilder, though, got the last line. When filming had concluded, he patted DeMille on the back and said, "Very good, my boy. Leave your name with my secretary. I may have a small part for you in my next picture."
Yeah, what a stiff, man. Thank God he was so good at what he did. And thank God also it's like a weird contrast, because also thank God Wilder is so good at what he does, because man, does he live fast and loose.
Yeah, other people could not have gotten away with his tongue.
No, they could not. Now, most of the movie was shot on location in and around Hollywood. Like Wilder had done with The Long Weekend, he wanted a realistic effect, almost like a documentary. So he shot in and around LA. Norma's famous mansion, though, was sadly not on Sunset Boulevard. It was located at 641 South Irving Boulevard. It was featured again in 1955's Rebel Without a Cause, and then it was raised in 1957.
Just imagine if the movie had been called Irving Boulevard.
Somehow a little less.
Probably wouldn't have, make the same exact movie, but with the title Irving Boulevard. Not a classic.
No, 110th Boulevard.
Some fun facts about the movie. As we've said in the past, Wilder never considered himself an auteur. He didn't concern himself with camera angles and showy shots, even though, as we've said time and time again, he is absolutely a master craftsman. For Sunset, he gave his director of photography, John F. Seitz, who had worked with Wilder numerous times, including Double Indemnity, a lot of freedom, allowing him to shoot it in black and white and set up a lot of the shots. There's a story where Seitz asks Wilder how he'd like to stage the scene of the chimpanzee's funeral, and Wilder tells him, Oh, just your standard monkey funeral shot. You may also have recognized, if you're a true film buff, Norma's massive ornate bed. It had been used appropriately in Lon Chaney's 1925 The Phantom of the Opera.
Ooh, interesting. I didn't notice that.
It's a hell of a bed.
That is a hell of a bed. It's like a boat.
I could eat bonbons in that bed.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Yeah, better than a race car bed, which is what I always wanted. Now, the movie did go over schedule, which is a rarity for Wilder, but only by 5 days. Some of their delays were simply attributed to weather. Sites didn't want to shoot LA when it was sunny. He needed to be overcast and gray to capture the moody atmosphere of the story. Some reshoots were required, more than usual, in fact. Wilder did once again run a smooth set and got Sunset Boulevard in the can as expected. But once he got into the editing room, he found that some scenes just weren't right. In fact, this happened 3 times, which is unusual for Wilder, and it did force the movie to go over budget to the tune of $180,000. Now, Keir, before we talk about Sunset's reception, I want to ask you a question. Is Sunset Boulevard a personal picture? You and I both know through studying Wilder that he almost goes out of his way to separate himself from his art. But here, it's hard to miss. We've already looked at the basis of the movie, how, at least in some part, it was inspired by D.W. Griffith's death and how that shook Wilder. How someone so big could be so forgotten, become so destitute. You could drill down even further, though. A lot of Wilder's life has been spent on the run. He bounced all over Europe, staying one step ahead of fascism, from Austria to Germany to England, then finally to America. One constant throughout all of that was his writing, his work, his movies. And now here he is in America, in LA, the end of the line when it comes to filmmaking. But it's not paradise. It's an ugly and nasty business. Sure, it's better than what he left behind in Europe, but darkness is still there. He just can't escape it. So I ask, is Sunset Boulevard a personal movie?
Yes.
Good.
Your question almost answers itself. But yeah, I think it is. People talk a lot, and we've talked before about how Wilder's called a cynical director. And, I think he has a certain amount of cynicism, but, he himself would see it as being more realistic and more clear-eyed. And yes, absolutely. Given the insecurity he knew in his youth, given that he had personal experience of, he knew how fate hangs on a slender thread. He'd lost members of his family in the Holocaust. He had been riding high in Berlin as a filmmaker, growing in stature, and then had to flee and start all over. And then he makes it over to America. It's almost like Sunset Boulevard in reverse. He is Joe Gillis because he hadn't made it big in America, but he had been big in Europe. He gets to America. He has a permit to work on one movie and then has to go to Mexico for a little while and just like hang out. And I don't know if it was squalor, but it wasn't, the lap of luxury while he was waiting to come back into the country. That's something that he dramatized in another screenplay, right? Was it Hold Back the Dawn?
Yes. Yeah, the Mitchell Eisen movie.
Also, when he does kind of start clawing his way, he gets back into Hollywood and he starts kind of clawing his way into the industry. He stayed in digs that were so low rent that he often said he lived in the women's room at the Chateau Marmont. We don't think he actually lived in the women's restroom, but he seemed to live in either an antechamber or an adjoining room or whatever. He could clearly hear the toilets flushing.
Yeah.
He was within sight of successful people and he was around successful people. As the famous story goes, he was so desperate that he jumped into a swimming pool with his clothes on for money.
Yeah.
That's the kind of Joe Gillis aspect. Now, by the time he's made Sunset Boulevard, he's riding a hot streak, a multi-year hot streak. He is a hot property. He knows it. He's not terribly modest. He definitely had a little bit of an ego. But I think that even though he didn't put voice to fears or insecurities to his friends, I think that he works these things out in his art. And I think that Sunset Boulevard is very much an expression of his understanding of exactly how fragile everything is.
Yeah, I mean, I can't add much. I mean, I think you used the word perfectly of insecurity because it has to be shattering. This is still early Hollywood, so to speak. The late 1940s, you're still in a very kind of early period of what Hollywood is, in the sense that the alpha generation is still around. That's how nascent this all is, and he's seeing what that generation, what has become of them, and that has to for somebody who never who grew up without getting a stable foot in the world, he has to kind of have that in the back of his mind, that like there is stability is kind of a lie. You can reach the apex of your field and end up like a drunken, has-been that people don't even recognize anymore in his own town, in his own industry. Like, that's terrifying. That's terrifying to feel like I can run and I can run and I can reach the heights and I can put all that scary, bad stuff behind me. And I can still find new scary bad stuff, because it doesn't really matter the heights you reach, because you can always have, there's always a downfall, and we're going to talk about that soon enough. In his later films, he does reach, the other side of his career, but it's not as stark as this, but like that is a scary thing, I think, for anybody who comes from, hardship, poverty, whatever, that nagging voice in the back of your head that like, it's really, you never really feel secure and safe and like everything's fine and it's going to continue to be fine.
And Hollywood would change in the coming decades. There would become, funds and support and old actors' homes and things like this that would provide a little bit of a stopgap for some of these faded stars. But this is still pretty early days where, yeah, you could have, somebody like D.W. Griffith, who's basically a, panhandling bum.
Yeah, I mean, you go on and on. Those Bela Lugosi, I mean, his story is heartbreaking and awful and tragic. Like there's so many of these stories. I mean, look at Bela Lugosi. Still was trying to work the same thing, and he made countless movies, these Poverty Row movies, just so you can make it to his next paycheck.
His next fix.
Yeah, but that too. Yeah, I mean, it is a there's so much of that, and you're right. They didn't have that. The security and the unions and all that stuff that they have now, and that stuff that would kind of grow. So, Keir, let's talk now about how Sunset Boulevard was received at the time of its release. We know it now is, it's one of the greatest movies ever made, a classic that basically tops all the other classics. But was it appreciated when it was released in 1950?
Not at first.
Oh.
Originally, the movie opened not with Joe floating in a pool, but with Joe in a morgue, telling his story to other corpses. This version was screened in Evanston, Illinois, go Wildcats, and the audience found it funny. They laughed at the idea of corpses talking, and Wilder knew right away they had gotten it all wrong.
Yeah.
Distraught, he left the screening and huddled alone on the steps of the theater. A woman walked out laughing and said to Wilder, not knowing who he was, "Have you ever seen shit like this in your life?" "No," Wilder replied, "I haven't." Once again, Wilder had to go back to the editing room. Luckily, he had shot the sequence of Holden floating in the pool, so more reshoots weren't needed. What was needed, though, was a new voiceover sequence. Wilder loved him some voiceover, and the acknowledgement that Gillis was narrating from the grave, a detail that only adds to the sour humor and the darkness of the movie.
Once these edits were complete, the movie had its world premiere on August 10th, 1950 at Radio City Music Hall. It ran there for 7 weeks and made over $1 million, making it one of the theater's most successful movies. But while the movie was a big hit in the cities, according to Variety, it was a bit of a dud in, and I quote, the sticks. The movie made in total, now granted, Radio City Music Hall made $1 million. It made only $5 million total, and that was on a $2 million budget. So it was a hit, but just not a huge hit.
And as you'd expect, it was a hit with critics. The Hollywood Reporter raved about it, saying that this completely original work is so marvelous, satisfying, dramatically perfect, and technically brilliant, is no Hollywood miracle, but the inevitable consequence of the collaboration of Charles Brackett and Billy Wilder. You want to applaud Sunset Boulevard frame by frame. So they liked it. Andrew Sarris claimed to have seen it 25 times during its run. That's like Star Wars level film nerdery right there. Good for you, Andrew. Variety loved it, but called it disturbing. Time said, it is a story of Hollywood at its worst, told by Hollywood at its best. Nice turn of phrase. And James Agee called it Brackett and Wilder's best movie yet.
Want to know one person who didn't like the movie? Louis B. Mayer. He hated it. Legend has it that he stomped out of the screening, caught Wilder on his way out, and said, "You bastard." Mayer was appalled at the image of Hollywood Wilder was about to present to the world. Quote, "You should be tarred and feathered and run out of Hollywood." To which Wilder replied to the head of MGM, quote, "Go shit in your hat." I don't know what that means, but onlookers gasped. Mayer was dumbstruck, but Wilder, as you probably assume, simply didn't give a fuck.
We're definitely losing our PG rating this episode. Wilder was the Eminem of his day. And all this praise and sensation was garnering Sunset Boulevard lots of Oscar buzz. In fact, in the movie's press book, printed before the film was even released, Paramount heralded it as a clear Oscar contender. In any other year, Mike, Sunset Boulevard would have had an easy path to Best Picture, Best Director, and so on. But not in 1950. Because Sunset Boulevard had competition. Another movie that was all about Hollywood and had tons of pedigree behind it. A little movie called All About Eve.
Keir, if someone's coming to Chicago, what's one place they have to visit?
Mike, no one should leave town without stopping by Exile in Bookville, the city's most beautiful and carefully curated bookstore. It's located on the second floor of the historic Fine Arts Building at 410 South Michigan Avenue.
Hey, didn't you write a book about the Fine Arts Building?
Why, yes, I did. It's called Chicago's Fine Arts Building, Music, Magic, and Murder, and you can find it at Exile.
Exile is the best. Wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling books, all lovingly selected by owners Javier and Kristen Ramirez. I guarantee you'll find something to read.
Their strong suit may be general and literary fiction, but I particularly love the middle room. That's where I find graphic novels as well as books about art and music, cooking and cocktails, and our personal favorite, books about movies.
Javier and Kristen were kind enough to let the Filmographers recommend our favorites, so stop by and see what we selected.
I wrote a shelf talker for one of my all-time favorites, Kyle Buchanan's Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, the wild and true story of Mad Max Fury Road.
They also stocked one of my faves, Sam Wasson's The Big Goodbye, Chinatown, and the Last Years of Hollywood.
Exile also has nonfiction, short stories, small press titles, and the very best in modern horror.
Listeners, if you're coming to Chicago, don't leave without visiting Exile in Bookville in the Fine Arts Building at 410 South Michigan Avenue. But you don't have to come to Chicago. You can find all they have to offer at exileinbookville.com.
Because there's more to life than movies. There are also books.
About movies. Keir, how the hell were Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve released within 10 weeks of each other? How is that even possible?
They were the Volcano and Dante's Peak of their time. the Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Similar in quality, too. Something was most definitely in the water in La La Land. And good news, Filmographers listeners, we're going to discuss these two movies in detail for this month's Patreon episode. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a fascinating slice of film history.
For now, we'll tell you that Boulevard and Eve were the top movies of 1950, at least critically. When it came to the Academy Awards, it was those two and everybody else. All About Eve led the pack with 14 nominations, and Sunset had 11. It wasn't a good start for Boulevard, and it wasn't about to get any better, though, because Eve cleaned up on Oscar night. Best Picture and Best Director went to All About Eve and Joe Mankiewicz. George Sanders, the actor, not the author, won Best Supporting Actor over von Stroheim, but Sunset wasn't shut out completely. Brackett, Marshman, and Wilder did win for Best Screenplay. In the weirdest twist of the night, neither Gloria Swanson nor Bette Davis won Best Actress, even though they were the leading favorites. Instead, the prize went to newcomer Judy Holliday for Born Yesterday, proving that Ageism was alive and well in 1950s Hollywood.
Yeah, and like always, the Academy Awards meant little to nothing, as Sunset Boulevard has managed to do just fine 75 years since more or less striking out on that supposed big night. I mean, what can you really say about Sunset Boulevard that conveys its enduring legacy? It was one of the first 25 movies that the Library of Congress deemed culturally and historically significant and was selected for preservation by the National Film Registry. If there's a list of greatest 100 movies of all time, you can be sure Sunset Boulevard is on it. In 2006, the WGA ranked its screenplay as the 7th best ever written. It's been called one of the most quotable movies ever. Its score has been ranked as one of the best ever composed. Its 75th anniversary re-release was an event, though I don't remember seeing as much about All About Eve, just saying. Everywhere you go.
Yeah, or Born Yesterday.
Yeah, unless I missed it completely. Everywhere you go, everywhere you look, Sunset Boulevard is regarded as one of the best. And in another 75 years, I don't think that will change.
And its legacy has endured through other adaptations. Strange adaptations, but they keep the story alive and show just how evergreen, how enduring its themes are, and how they resonate regardless of the era. The story was revived in 1993 by Andrew Lloyd Webber as a musical. Not sure why exactly, but it was. This was before our recent craze of turning everything into a musical.
2001, the musical.
Schindler's List, the musical.
We jest, but you never know.
But the musical was actually a success. So, the joke's on us. The always great Glenn Close played Norma. The show had successful runs in London and New York, and it was named the best musical at the 1995 Tony Awards. It's bitterly ironic, though, that around this time, 1994 to 1995, Wilder was being phased out of Hollywood, just like Norma Desmond.
Hollywood may have a sense of tragic irony, but it's not nearly robust enough to prevent them from doing something, anything, that might turn a buck.
Sir Andrew was intrigued by the story of Hollywood discarding aging stars and got the blessing of Billy Wilder, who by then was being gently phased out of Hollywood himself.
Did he, in a way, get the Norma Desmond treatment?
He does tell a wonderful story about him going to see some young movie executive who'd just been there. And this young executive says to him, well, Mr. Wilder, we're very impressed by this screenplay that you've done, but it would be really helpful if you could tell me what you have done in the past. And Billy turned around to this young executive and said, you first.
There's one more piece about this movie's legacy, Keir: the official dissolution of Brackett's and Wilder's partnership. We talked about it earlier in this episode, but by the time the movie was released, and certainly after, the divorce was final. Wilder and Brackett were no more.
It's truly unfortunate, especially when you realize just how hurt Brackett was by this. He clearly felt Wilder had treated him unfairly, and it's tragic that Wilder seemingly never gave him any closure. He never told him exactly why they were parting ways. In the mid-1960s, with his health failing, Brackett told fellow screenwriter Garson Kanin this: I never knew what happened, never understood it. We were doing so well. I always thought we brought out the best in each other. But we met one morning, as we always did, and Billy smiled that sweet smile of his at me and said, you know, Charlie, after this, I don't think we should work with each other anymore. I could say nothing. It was shattering. And Billy, you know how he is. He got right into the business of the day, and we said no more about it. I never thought I'd recover from it. And in fact, I don't think I ever have.
That's devastating. And we'll never know Wilder's thoughts and feelings on the matter. Unlike Brackett, he didn't publish a diary, and he was a master at evading things he didn't want to discuss. But there was a telling moment years later when, again, according to Psychoff, biographer Maurice Zolotov asked Wilder about what Brackett had told Kanin, and Wilder just stared out a window, silent, and didn't even respond. Maybe there's regret there. Maybe he was just tired of talking about it. We'll never know.
It is worth pointing out, for Brackett's sake, that he did have a fruitful career after separating from Wilder. He wrote a number of movies, including Niagara, which helped launch Marilyn Monroe as a star, and he wrote Titanic, for which he was nominated for an Academy Award. Maybe Wilder didn't appreciate Brackett, but here on the Filmographers, we do.
Damn right. And you know what? You're welcome, Wilder, because Niagara paved the way for Marilyn Monroe. Would she have been in Some Like It Hot? I don't know, 7 Year Itch? I don't know.
I'd bet he never sent a thank you card to Charles Brackett.
No, he probably told him to go shit in his hat. Okay, Keir. It's time for our final segment for today's episode. We're closing, as always, with the Filmographers 5. And today, we're taking a big swing.
Top 5 times the Academy got it wrong.
That's a good one, but I think we make it more like the Filmographers top 500, as the Academy gets it wrong all the time. Instead, we're doing this. The Filmographers 5, top 5 movies about movies. Keir, now you're going to kick us off with not our number 5. Well, this is our number 5, but we're going to kind of go our separate ways in some of these picks. So there's some of us that we agree, some of these that we agree on, and some of them that we diverge on. So there's going to be some repetition of numbers in here.
Absolutely. Normally, when we put together Filmographers 5, we see eye to eye on so many things, and maybe there's a point or two of difference, and then we kind of hash it out and we find something we can both agree on. This time we diverged on a couple of picks, but more than that, this is such a vast universe of films, a constellation, a galaxy. A universe is the biggest thing. It's such a big universe of films that one top 5 just didn't quite cut it. And I want to say all of my picks are dramas about Hollywood. These are not documentaries, because to me, that would be another very worthwhile list. Some of my favorite movies of all time are movies about the making of films.
Oh yeah, no, we couldn't open up that can of beans.
Can of beans.
Can of beans. But yes. So number 5, Keir, you will kick us off, and this is our shared number 5.
Yes, and this is our shared number 5 because we actually agree on this one. Our 5th favorite movie about movies is, and God, is it tough narrowing it down to so few, but our number 5 choice is Ed Wood. Every movie about Hollywood and the industry tends to focus on the studios and the stars and the glitz and the glamour. Rarely is the focus on the other people who make movies, the pathological dreamers, the freaks, the outcasts. And Ed Wood gives them not only their moment, it gives them their due. It never laughs at them, never dehumanizes them. Like Ed Wood himself, this strange troupe of filmmakers are treated with love and dignity, and the entire thing is driven by Burton's excellent directing and some magnificent performances by Johnny Depp and Martin Landau.
So my 4th favorite movie about movies is Hugo, a movie that proves that what kids really look for in a movie is the joy of film preservation. I joke, but only kind of, because that's what the movie is about. And while it's a wonderful kids' adventure, it's also this moving story about the importance of not only preserving film, but preserving history and not allowing lives and loves to be forgotten. No one but Scorsese could pull this off. His passion for movie and movie history is infectious, and it's simply impossible not to get caught up in his joy.
Well, my number 4 is a film that feels a little dated right now, but I'm going with The Player, partly because that was, of its time, that was the definitive Hollywood film about Hollywood. Robert Altman's sprawling style with huge cast of characters and winky casting and like people playing versions of themselves was, in some ways very, very insidery and self-referential, but it's also got a dark core at its center. And Tim Robbins' portrayal of Griffin Mill as this very opportunistic guy who turns his back on the people closest to him. I will never forget the scene in the hot tub where he just ices his girlfriend, who's this sweet, lovely human woman. I haven't seen this movie in 20 plus years, and I still remember that scene so vividly. I think that it does do a little bit of what Sunset Boulevard does in giving us the dark heart. But yeah, it's got the jokey stuff with the Whoopi Goldberg and the Fred Ward and all that. But I love all of it. And it's got one of the most audacious oneers in film history. People love to do them now. It's almost a stunt thing to do a great oneer. But I remember people talked about that all year, the opening shot of that film. It was so amazingly choreographed. So I think The Player still would hold up if I were to see it again today. And certainly, even if it doesn't, in my memory, it holds up as one of the quintessential Hollywood films about Hollywood.
Yes, I agree. It was close to making my/our list, but something held me back, and I'm not sure what. I mean, it's tight. We got 5 movies here, and there's so many great
That's
ones.
why we got 2 lists this time.
That's why we have 2 lists. Now, our shared third favorite movie about movies is Mulholland Drive, David Lynch's dreamy, nightmarish odyssey through LA. It's no wonder that he's called Sunset Boulevard one of his favorite movies, and that watching it is like living through a dream. You can feel Boulevard's DNA in every reel of Mulholland. It's a movie that, like many Lynch films, defies easy answers, but it digs deep into the heart of identity, of the heartbreak of failed dreams, and who we are, if not our projections of ourselves. It's fantasy, it's surreal, it's everything that Hollywood is, only taken to its extreme and made deeply personal.
And my number 2 movie about movies is from a director that I have often been up and down on, but it's Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That is a film that I think is so fascinating because it's not just about movies and movie making, although that's a large portion of it, but it's about all the seedy stuff surrounding the Hollywood dream and the dark side of Hollywood dream. It's about, it's a classic Tarantino style. It's a revisionist history. It's him writing a new ending to a historic event. But in its way, I think just through the scenes of Cliff, the stuntman, driving his convertible through the Hollywood night, it just kind of captures this weird, uneasy balance of like the thing we all wish for and the thing we actually get. And it turns out this guy, he spends all his time palling around with this rich movie star who's seething with insecurities and problems of his own. And he lives in a trailer behind a drive-in movie theater. It's the highs and the lows, the has-beens and the never-wases. I really think that Tarantino captures it perfectly in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well, I'm going to be Job from Arrested Development here and say I've made a terrible mistake. I can't believe I didn't. Oh man, I forgot that one. I'm kicking myself. I'm still going to give my number 2, but yeah, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a 1.5, I guess, for me. And you know what? Maybe even a number 1. Somebody tweeted this recently, and I love it. I'll be brief, but they said like how Tarantino has this great dialogue, all his memorable moments and dialogue from all his movies, and we can quote it to death. But he's like, Once Upon a Time doesn't have that, but there are just such good scenes and moments where like, Cliff and I forget his name, Leo, they come back home and Leo's like, hey, you gonna stay and watch the whatever? And he's like, yeah, I figured I was. Got a 6-pack in the back. Thought we'd order some pizzas. And Leo goes, okay. And Cliff goes, okay. And that's it. And it's like such a great, and it's, those 2 actors who make it, but like that movie is just filled with, you just love these moments, and there's so many of them.
And DiCaprio as Rick Dalton on the Western set, acting opposite that girl and trying to get his mojo back, is one of the most tense and harrowing and ultimately cathartic things I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, I mean, his trailer meltdown is remarkable. One of the great Tarantino scene leading to that. So good.
Yeah,
so good. So my number 2, what was my number 2 favorite movie about movies, and I still love this, is Babylon. And I know I'm rocking the boat here, but I absolutely do love this movie. For people who might think that Sunset Boulevard is too kind and gentle, not dark enough, boy, is this the movie for you. Granted, it does hit a lot of familiar beats. It's more or less a dark retelling of Singing in the Rain, but it also captures the silent period of cinema in a way that no other movie has. What a lot of people might not realize is just how batshit crazy that period of movie history was. I mean, it was truly nuts. No one knew what they were doing trying to make movies. Not really. People died making them like regularly. And, they had all these weirdos who flocked to LA and were now flush with more money than they could ever imagine, and were basically using it to create Babylon. It's a terrific movie that I really hope continues to be rediscovered through the years.
And that's what you get on the Filmographers podcast. Honest, unvarnished opinions. We're not trying to say the movie that we're not trying to line our opinions up with everyone else's. Mike and I are gonna be here for what we believe in, and that may be Babylon.
Unless we get enough negative email, then forget it.
Then we're gonna disown it completely.
Yeah, no, right. Go back. We're gonna cut it out. Gone.
And our first favorite movie about movies is not a movie about Hollywood movies. It's a movie about movies, though. Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights. This is a film that, like Ed Wood, captures the importance of being a dreamer, of going out into the world and carving your own identity, then blasting it out to anyone who will notice. It's also about the perils of stardom, how dangerous it is to forget what truly matters is your family, even if that family is a group of pornographers and led by a father figure who refuses to compromise his integrity. A rare thing, not only in the land of smut, but movie making in general. Anderson's direction is a shotgun blast of energy, and the world he captures is absolutely unforgettable. Just like this movie. I wish he still made movies like this.
You know what? Folks, listen to our top movies of 2025. You'll find one is missing. That's on a lot of other lists. And I'm with you. I miss this era. I feel like you cut PTA's career in half. You can cleave it in half, and like one half, it's like The Master and then everything after, and then The Master and everything before. Like this Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, where he was just like, he was on a lot of coke. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Not good for his personal life. It was good for his movies.
Great for his movies. But yeah, I do miss that. Granted, he's matured, he's aged, but I do miss that young, full throttle, shotgun blast and PTA that was. I do miss it. Yeah. Amen. So listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us on our journey through the life and career of the great Billy Wilder. Want to show us some love? Once again, please leave us a rating, leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to us on. Have a comment or a suggestion? We want to hear from you. Email us, thefilmographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you, as always, to our fantastic producer, Kevin Lau, who makes our podcast look and sound like $1 million. Our theme music was composed and played by Gompson, and our logo and merch is designed by Cosmo Graff.
Join us in 2 weeks as we explore what might just be Wilder's darkest film and his first effort as a solo writer.